All right, so let's kind of get started. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was we're focusing pretty heavily on database, and I know some of you them don't know who you are or your experience level. So I figured, Michelle, if you want to go first, and then Beth is second, just give them an update on your experience, how long you've been in real estate, and kind of what you focus on in your business. Like, how do you get your business? What are some of the ways that you focus on attracting leads? So, Michelle, can you start with that?
Sure. I started out as an admin operations manager for a team in the office and did that for almost a year. And then I decided to take on real estate full time in 2016. So 2016 was really my first year in business on my own. And I have primarily done business networking, and for sale by owners is how I really got my business started. Most of my business now is by referral, so I'm fortunately I don't have to do as much of those activities as I did in the very beginning, but I still get business from those avenues as well. And what else did you want me to say, or what do I focus on now? Is
Yeah,
that the
that
other
kind of
thing?
covers it. I just wanted to kind of get a little bit of a lay of the land as far as what you focus on and kind of where your business comes from. So that's good.
Yeah, so most of it's referral now.
Yeah. And then Beth, kind of give your kind of a little bit of info about you and what you focus on to attract leads.
Sure. So I got into the business right when the market crashed in June of 2008. And I really got started because I was not from this area. I did not have a sphere. I didn't have any connections. I lived in a neighborhood that was very rural, and I was the only stay-at-home mom at the time. So I really didn't know anybody. I just didn't have a sphere. So I did all the notes to the few people, everybody in my neighborhood, and I started visiting with vendors and trying to align myself with them, but really was not getting anywhere with that. So then I really focused on open houses. So I was doing open houses every single weekend for anybody in our office who would let me do it. And I did not start at Keller Williams. I started at a different company.
Okay. And so now that your business is at the size that it is now, what do you focus on now? What are your main focus or lead sources?
So 96% of our business comes from referral. So that's past clients, our sphere, and agent referrals from agents all over the country. Like I got 2 of those today. So when you add all that up, I would say, well, I know for a fact, 96% of our business is by referral.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's kind of go into the topic. We wanted to talk about database. So, of course, when you were just getting started out, did you know what a database was? Did you feel like that was a priority when you were first starting? If you didn't, like, what point did you feel like you had to adopt that? So, when this word database was presented to you when you finally got started, like, what was your take on it? So, Michelle, you want to answer that, and then Beth?
So I was like Beth, I've only been here for 6 years. So when I took Ignite and everyone was talking about database and Sphere, I was like, wow, my Sphere is 100 miles away. I don't really know anyone here. So I really had to I was doing open houses every single weekend, if not 1, 2, just to grow my database. Making calls to FISBOs was a daily lead generation activity for me. And I had been in business prior to getting into real estate for 16 years. So I knew that I had to keep track of my clients and keep in touch with them. And, that whole referral system wasn't new to me. Real estate was just new to me. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Beth, what about you? When you got into business and this word database came up, what was your initial thought? And Did you adapt to it, or how did that first start with you?
So, first of all, I started out at a company that's not very tech savvy, and I would say the average age of the
Oh no.
with that. So the reason I bring that up is because there just wasn't a lot of technology at that company, and it wasn't a priority. And a lot of those folks just kept saying, you just need to shake hands. You just need to shake hands with people. Just walk around and shake hands and the business will come. So, but I was very familiar from my previous job with Excel, and I knew I needed a database of some kind. And so I just utilized Excel, and I put everyone I could in there, like Michelle was saying, for my open houses. When I would door knock or walk a neighborhood, I would ask, well, I had their name and I had their address. And then I would ask them if they were home, if I could have some other type of, contact information for them. And then I just created my own Excel spreadsheet of all that information, and I made columns where I could keep track of how often I reached out to them or how I reached out to them. What is it I sent them, or what did I say?
Oh, and so Beth, and I'll lead back to Michelle, is so you used the Excel spreadsheet. At what point did you feel like you needed to use maybe like a software, a database that was different than your Excel spreadsheet?
That up.
And why did you think, what was the breaking point, or what was the point where you had to shift from that Excel spreadsheet to we call it a CRM or database? What do you remember what that was like and why you switched?
So my husband is in IT, so I was familiar with what a CRM is, and he would say to me, you need to get a CRM. So I just started researching that. Again, the company I was at did not provide anything like that. They didn't give you guidance. They never talked about it. So I started to get invited to Keller Williams events, workshops, seminars, and got introduced to the tools and technology. And right about that time was when e-Edge was coming out, and a new website option for KW people. And all of that really spoke to me. I just the light bulb went off. Hey, this is how I take it to the next level, is to get this technology. And I remember going in and talking to my broker saying, I'm leaving. I'm going to Keller Williams. And he said, why? And I said, all this great technology. They're going to give me a CRM, e-Edge. They're going to give me websites. And he suddenly said, well, what if I pay for top producer for you? We'll do that. We'll do that to keep you. And I just thought, you should have offered that in the first place. So that's what brought me to KW, was the promise of e-Edge and the marketing suite and the websites, because I wasn't getting any of that at my previous company. And I just knew I needed that to go to the next level, to start drip campaigns. And I had sort of become or been introduced to Brian Buffini about the same time frame. So I understood how important it is to do the notes and the pop buys and the phone calls, but I wasn't sure how I was going to track all of that. And so again, the gift of Keller Williams CRM just really put all those pieces together for me.
Yeah. Perfect. And Michelle, you transitioned to KW, but you use a different software. What was the point where you decided you needed to really dig into your database and use it? And what was your experience like when you first started with your database?
So having worked as, an operations manager on team, I have been exposed to Buffini and a little bit of e-Edge, but the team really didn't use e-Edge. So hold on one second. So I decided to go out, and I just found that I was using one program for one thing and another program for another thing, and I wanted to find something that was a little more central so I could do everything with one program. And I was broke. I didn't have any money, so it couldn't be something super expensive per month or anything like that. So I was able to find something that gave me everything I was looking for and 3 free months. So I decided to start really digging into that, and I still use it today. It's for me, it works, and I really, really, really want to dive into the new KW technology, because I just found, like it's best to have everything in one place and not spread yourself out and try to use 2 different programs to do the same thing. You just kind of have to decide what's going to work best for you and move in that direction. But the technology that is today is like so amazing, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So can you guys pinpoint if your database has made you money? Like if it has, how do you think it's actually helped you make money? Because we talk about lead generation a lot at Keller Williams, but database, does it provide a space for you to really, you can count on it to help you be more productive, make more income, listings? How do you think your database has helped you increase your production? So Beth, can you go first on that?
Well, so first, let me just say, I started with eEdge, but I eventually transitioned to use by referral, which is the CRM through Buffini. And I made a conscious decision to go all in on the Buffini business model. And I felt like I needed to use their CRM in order to do that, because it's really built to track your phone calls, your notes, your referrals, your pop buys. And there's a lot of great things about that CRM. So I made that switch 100% to Buffini about 3 years ago, I want to say. So to answer your question, I'm very able to track where all of my referrals have come from, and can see that, those are the people that we do Popeyes to. Those are the people, there's something very gratifying about taking your database and assigning them a role. They're either an A+, an A, a B, a C, a D, and really nurturing them. Your goal is to get everyone to be an A+, but that just isn't reality. It's not going to happen. So, but you can really begin to see how your A+s are paying the bills for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it does. And Michelle, what about you? Do you think it's impacted or increased your business because you're using your database?
Absolutely. So the particular software that I use, every morning when I sit down at my desk at 9 a.m., I pull up a task list. So it tells me all the people that I need to contact that day, whether I'm writing them a note, sending them a market update, calling them, or, monthly mailers. I do those too. So I have a task list that will remind me. So each person, depending on, how many touches I feel like I need to give them, either to get their business or to get their referrals in the future, I have certain amounts of touches and time between them, but I could never keep all that in my head. And I will give you an example of, I just think handwritten notes are so powerful. And I had met with a FSBO in like October, and 2 years later, all I had was her address. Her phone number was like a Google number she had created for the Zillow page, and her email address had been defunct. So the only way I had to stay in touch with her was through writing handwritten notes. And so one day she calls me, and I answer the phone, and she says, "Hey, this is so-and-so. She said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Well, of course I do." And she said, "Well, I had 12 agents come through the house when I had it for sale, and you're the only one who stayed in contact with me." And I'd written her 4 notes a year for a year and a half, so 6 notes total. And she called me. I sold that house, and I helped them buy another house. So, if I hadn't had my database to remind me to send her those notes every quarter, then that would be business I would never have had in referrals.
Yeah, and I think let me mute Miss Misha there. So also it kind of ties into my next question is about time, right? So real estate, we're yanked in different directions. Obviously, our personal lives we are as well, and so database. Some of the perception is database takes so long. We have to add people in. It's like this secretary or accountant admin role. Do you think that you're like you had said, like, do you think your database is saving you time rather than wasting time? Do you think that you've gotten some of your life back because you use the database? Michelle, you can go there and then I'll ask Beth that same question. Do you think that has helped your time management?
Well, I mean, absolutely. And it's kind of like your own little gold mine. I mean, that's where you're going to nurture your business or nurture referrals for new business is through that. So, it may feel taxing on your time in the beginning, but once you see that writing those notes and sending out those mailers and making those calls, even if people ghost you and never respond, they believe me, they are getting your messages, they are seeing your emails, they are receiving your texts and your voicemails and your notes and all of that. And sometimes people just
Oh, that was going to be good.
are poised for them to call. Or you're going to call them on the one day that they're like, you know what, we're ready to do this thing. So, yeah, I don't see it as a chore. I see it as a very important part of my business and time well spent.
And Beth, do you want to respond, like, again, your concept of time, and why do you think maybe if you're a newer agent or maybe even an experienced agent, they resist that database because they think it's a time sucker? Like, what's your reply to that, and how has it impacted your time?
Well, I want to go back to something Michelle said that her CRM does, and the Buffini by referral does it too, and I think you can set up an e-edge to do this. But for her and for me, I can come in and she can go to her computer and click, and it tells her exactly who to call, exactly who to write notes to, and who maybe she needs to pop by to see. And that is so valuable to give us focus, because I think that is the biggest time suck, is starting every day and not having a focus of who to call and why you're calling or contacting.
So true.
And so, I used to have an office at home, and I would go into the office every morning and I would just sit there and waste time because I didn't know exactly who I'm supposed to be reaching out to. So, I think that's one of the beauties of the database is it gives you focus, it gives you purpose. Yes, it gives you data. Yes, it gives you a way, to keep all the numbers and keep all the information, but that focus is so important. And as a new agent, you have to put a lot of time into it up front, but it will pay off in the end. So, you just got to suck it up and do it and create that database, or else you're just, what's the percentage that NAR says 70-something% of buyers and sellers would use the same realtor again if they could remember their name?
Yeah.
So, that to me, that's a pretty strong stat. And I don't know about you, but I'd like to recapture 70% of the people I've worked with, and even higher if I can. And the best tool to do that is a database that can give you focus, that can track your numbers, and be purposeful.
Okay, awesome. I wrote all that. That's gold right there. So let me ask you guys, how do you keep your database up to date? What do you do to, say we've got everybody in the database, a new agent has listened, they're like, okay, I'm going to put my 200 people in my database. What are you going to do how do you continue to grow it or feed it? Like, what's your day-to-day tactic on kind of keeping that database clean and fresh? Beth, what do you do with your database daily?
Okay.
That keeps that kind of together?
First, I just want to say there's something very cathartic and pleasing to eliminate a toxic client or connection out of your life.
Yes, delete.
So,
Yes.
if you worked with somebody and they're not a good person and you didn't like them, or you've got someone in your sphere who you're not, or a vendor who you're not really proud of, delete them, get them out of there. It's okay. That's very freeing to get toxicity out of your life. So just stick them in the delete trash can and move on. I go through the database at least 3 times a year, and I go through every person and decide, do I still like them as the A plus or the A or the C, and who do I need to delete out? So now I will caution you on this. I have some clients who I helped maybe the first year I got in the business, and I've never heard from them since. I've always sent them stuff religiously. They never thanked me. They never contacted me. And they're not a bad person, and I'm so tempted to delete them, but I haven't. And then all of a sudden they call you out of the blue, like Michelle said. You just never know. So when I say to delete somebody, I mean somebody who's toxic and negative to you and your business and your success. But
Gotcha.
but I do go through it 3 to 4 times a year and move them around and decide who should be where. And
Beth, what's the size of your database? Do you have a kind of a rough count of what size your database is?
Well, that's a great question. You think I would know the answer to that
I
right
mean, I
away?
didn't ask you that. I didn't prep that question. I was just curious. Is it larger than, because I was talking to, I think, Tracy, and she's got 300 or 400. It's not 6,000 a lot of times.
No.
So can you even ballpark it?
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now. I have 25 A pluses. I have 34 A's, 27 B's, and 442 C's. So I just clicked on the database and see how great I can pull those numbers up right away, because the database does that for you.
I'd also think it's not like database seems like, I don't know, it's such a big animal, and it's like an elephant. You got to just bite it one bite at a time, but you don't want it to be so big. I think that's what I got from what you just said, is deleting or re-ranking these people is important, because you don't want to have a yellow pages of 6,000 people, because that's not what a database is.
No. So the B and C people, they just get your drip campaign, the stuff that automatically runs from your 36 touch. And it's the A pluses and the A's, and some of the B's that I focus on for calls or notes or the pop buys. Even when we give a gift to everybody at the holiday time, so everybody gets a pop buy, but not 600 of them. We limit that to our A's, B's, and C's. I mean, A plus, A, and B. C, the 442 in the C's, they're not getting that big pop buy that we give to everybody. So that's how we do it. Now other people do it differently. But on a daily basis, my dashboard comes up, it tells me who to call. And sometimes I delete the first 3 because I don't want to talk to them that day, or I've already talked to them, or I'm not sure what I'm going to say, so I move on to the next person. And I do try to troll Facebook just a little bit real early in the morning, so I can see if there's any event that's happened to a client, like their kid won an award, or they got promoted at work, or something bad happened, so that when I come in the office, they're going to get my attention. I'm going to write a note to them. Sometimes a kid gets his black belt, and I'll send them a $10 gift card to Sweet Frog to the kid. If there's a death in the family, we always send a sympathy card, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I liked it because you're using your database just like it's really built for, its relationship. So I think that's great. Michelle, what about you? Do you do anything differently, or how do you tackle your database on a daily basis? How do you keep it clean, up to date after you've kind of got your main people in there? Any differences from what Beth said?
So Beth is such a Wonder Woman. I mean, she does an amazing job, not only I know she must do an amazing job with her clients, but she also has such a wonderful network of other agents, and she's, sent me sweet notes, and she's just incredible. So Thank you,
Just
Beth.
so you know, Michelle, I do have a card sitting on my desk to get to you. I just haven't gotten it to you.
Well, you're so sweet. You sent me the nicest email the other day. But anyway, I just went through my database just this past week. I have about 260 contacts. Contacts are people that I've done business with, my sphere, or vendors. So I have 259 or so in there. And then I've got about 60 people that are prospects right now. These are people that I haven't done business with, but I want to do business with. So I don't have a huge list, but I also eliminated a few the other day, because if I go through and I see that they've read none of my emails, or they've opted out of my emails, they've never activated their search, they're ignoring every call and text for the last 3 years, I'm just going to assume they probably bought something already. So, I just kind of took a few things out of there to sort of pare it down so that I could focus on the people that are somewhat responsive, right?
Yeah.
Which a year ago I would not have done that. I would have kept everyone in there, but I feel like I need to really focus on the people that are actually somehow responding to me. Either they have an active search, they're reading the drip email campaigns that I'm sending, or they're responding to my text messages saying, hey, we're just not ready yet, or whatever. So, but daily, I have been doing a lot of open houses, so I'm usually adding to my database that way, and I will make calls to past clients to ask for referrals, and I'll meet with vendors and stuff like that. But I don't know that it's really like daily I'm putting a new person in there, but I'm definitely grooming and working with every single day. And if that leads to adding more, then that's great. And if that leads to just, making a connection, and something that I that when I'm driving around and I'm like, because I remember all my clients, maybe because I don't have 300, I only have about 100 now, but I remember where they live. So I'll say, hey, I was just driving through the neighborhood, maybe I'll pass their house. And so it kind of gives you a reason to call and just say, hey, I was thinking about you. And I heard that tip from one of the top producing agents in Richmond, and I thought that was kind of a neat thing to do, because you're already in the car, you can't really text or answer emails, so why not make calls? So
Yeah. All right, so last question kind of on databases. Beth, I'll let you start, what is one question that you think we should be asking or letting agents know about their database that we haven't covered today? Is there something that maybe is one thing they shouldn't do, or maybe it's one thing they should do? Give us kind of your final end cap on database, and then we're going to go into a little bit on just how you run your business in general. But what would you say the question or the topic would be?
Well, I guess the one thing that I wouldn't do would be what I've already said about not being afraid to get people out of the database. That just don't make you feel good when you see their names. Just get them out of there. On the other hand, I think you shouldn't be afraid to put people in your database who you may not know very well. And I kind of had that issue when I first got into business. I was like, God, these people don't want to get stuff from me. I don't want to bug them. I don't want to put them in my database. They're going to, wonder why they're getting these dumb emails from me. And you got to get rid of that negative self-talk. If they know you or they recognize your name, stick them in your database. If they don't want to hear from you, they will unsubscribe. So they will let you know that. But there's, as Michelle said, there's so many people that I was worried about putting in there. And then 3 years later, they're like, we love getting all that stuff you've been sending us, and we want to use you. We're finally ready to buy, or, whatever. So don't be afraid to eliminate, and don't be afraid to add.
Yeah, I think that's a great, powerful. It's almost like quality creates the quantity. So quantity creates the quality. So you're adding people in, and then you can weed them back out. So it's that yin and yang of that quality and quantity. So I think it's important. Yeah, add them in, but then get rid of the jerks. I love it.
Hmm.
Michelle, what about you? What do you think is one thing we haven't asked yet that you think we should cover, a do or don't on database?
I say, don't give up. I really, I know that goes against what I just said, but sometimes you get a little bit of, crust on the bread. You just got to cut off, because it's not really going to do anything. But, I think persistence, be persistent. It doesn't mean you have to be annoying. It doesn't mean that you have to upset people by too many sales calls, but there have been times where I realized that I wasn't quite persistent enough and someone else got the business. And I thought, well, if I had just made more phone calls, or if I had just stayed on top of this a little bit more, maybe I would have been the one to win the business. So I think it's all about being persistent and not getting discouraged.
Yeah. Awesome. I wanted to ask you guys, and I know you guys are going to be honest because you guys both are very honest people. What do you think is the easiest part of real estate for you, and what do you think has been the challenging part of real estate for you thus far in your career? Michelle, do you want to tackle the easiest and the most challenging, and then Beth?
So easiest as far as like getting business, or what do I like to do the best? I mean, what, like,
It could be anything. It could be, what do you think? It could be lead generation. It could be your time management. Like, it literally, when you're looking at real estate, you're like, I'm good at this. Like, this
oh,
is good for me. This falls into my life well. Or it could be lead source. I left it open for you, kind of. What is
okay,
the easiest
okay,
part of
all
real
right.
estate for you? It could be life.
So
It could be
I have a background in interior design, so I absolutely love helping sellers get their house ready for sale. I mean, that is just like, it allows me to be creative. I'm good at telling people what they need to do in order to get the job done. And I can do it tactfully. So I had a lot of experience working with people that wanted to design their homes, and now I can work with people that want to sell their homes and give it the best presentation possible. So I really enjoy working with sellers. That is the one thing that I love to do. And I also I had a small background in construction, so I built a couple of homes, and I was always kind of a tomboy, so I loved having tools, and and I had a painting business too, so I've always been very hands-on. So I feel as though I know a lot about a house and the components and the parts and the pieces, and I'm really good at deciphering whether or not it's a defect or a cosmetic issue, or if it's a property improvement. So I feel like all of that sort of really helps on the seller side and also on the buy side as well, because I can prepare my buyers for what to expect during the home inspection, because I think that is the most emotional part of it, and it's where things can really go awry. So I really enjoyed that part. What I don't enjoy is I think that I didn't enjoy when I allowed my business to run my life instead of letting me run my business. So, I was out with buyers all the time. I was answering the phone at 11 o'clock at night. I had no life because all I had was business. And so now that I've taken back control of that, it's I can enjoy my business much more.
I like that. What's the tip on that? How do we get there? How do we go from, if that was your challenge and you kind of worked on tackling that, that's a whole nother call for that. But is there like one thing that you think is allowed you to take that challenge and turn it into an opportunity, but then kind of conquer it?
Well, I realized that I couldn't do everything, and that I wanted to do it well. I didn't want to just do it, and so I had a month where I was negotiating, I think, like 5 home inspection addendums in a week. And I was literally ready to slit my wrists. I mean, it was just awful. And I was trying to move, and I had all these personal things going on, and I felt like I wasn't allowed to even breathe. And I thought, I just want to quit. I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this. And I thought, that's not the right answer. The right answer is I just need to do something different. You know, I need to set boundaries, and I need to tell people how I run my business, and I need to stick to it, and I need to create a personal life. So I think in the beginning it's hard, and then you realize that the quality of your life, you might be, you know, making money and have lots of transactions, but you know, you don't take care of yourself, and it's so important to take care of yourself.
Yeah. So Beth, what about you? What do you think is the easiest part for real estate for you, and maybe then of course the challenging part for you?
The easiest part for me is presenting. I feel very comfortable going into a listing presentation or meeting with a buyer for a buyer consultation or teaching Ignite or any of that kind of stuff. I feel very, very confident, and I enjoy doing it. The uncomfortable part for me, the hardest part for me is dialing a phone. I do okay once the person says hello and I start talking, but the whole process of dialing the phone makes me sick to my stomach. And of course, that's my negative self-talk, but I really struggle with that. That's an ongoing struggle, is making myself make calls.
And have you found any way that maybe the feeling doesn't go away? Have you found any way to curve that feeling, or to kind of do it anyway?
Well, I try to do a little affirmation in my head. They know me, they like me. They know me, they like me before I call. So I just sort of run that mantra through my head quietly before I make the call. But I just hate calling people.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, because I love to chat and I love to present, and I feel very comfortable in a listing presentation, as I said, in those presentations. But the phone is not my jam.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason why I asked both of you the question is I think in any career we have or a job we've had, there's certain parts of every job or career, I mean, even relationships, we don't like 100% of it, right? There's still a percentage of things that we have to do that maybe are making us uncomfortable or maybe are challenging to our natural personality. But I think you two are good examples of pushing through it anyway, you know, pushing through that kind of limiting belief. So I had basically just two more quick questions, and then we'll kind of be done unless you had anything else. So your time management. So we talk about database help save some of your time. You got all of the transaction work, and you got finding new leads. Beth, what do you do to maintain your best time management for your business and your personal life? Do you find that easy, hard, and then maybe a one step that can help us out if somebody's struggling with their time?
Well, first of all, I notice a lot of realtors, when they get a buyer or seller who wants to meet with them, I find most agents will say, great, when do you want to meet? And when you handle it that way, they undoubtedly are going to ask for a time that's not convenient for you. It's either going to be when you should be lead generating, or it's going to be when you're supposed to be getting your daughter from school, or going to your son's concert, or whatever you have going on. So my first piece of advice is always say, oh, I'm so glad to hear from you. Hey, I have availability at this day at this time, or this day at this time, which works best for you. So when you take control of the meeting, setting the meetings, scheduling the times, that will help you maintain control of your calendar. Otherwise, your family and your personal life are going to suffer, because your average buyer and seller, they don't want to meet you during the day, so they're going to ask for a weekend or at night. But if you only give them times that are during a weekday, then they will schedule accordingly. And if for some reason they can't, then you can always make concessions. But if you always do that open-ended, oh great, what works for you, then you're never going to be able to carve out time for the tasks and the people that truly matter to you.
Yeah, that's Michelle. What do you think? Your time management. You know what it takes to be a successful agent and have a family and set those different priorities. What do you think is your tactic to the best time management for an agent?
Well, I think, Beth really is, it's very, you have to be in control of your schedule. You can't let someone else dictate where you're going to be and when you're going to be there. And so I think as a new agent, you're so eager and you're like, okay, you want to see one house in Goochland today at 6:30? Okay, sure, I'll be there. And you live in Mechanicsville.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, that's awesome. I'm glad you found a house you like. While we're out there, maybe we could pick a couple more, so that you're not going all the way across town to show one, I call them one-offs.
I like that. One-offs. I like that.
One-offs. And so then you're, rushing around. They're like, well, it's okay. We don't really like where it's located because, they didn't really take time to drive around and check it out. So a lot of times when I know that people are very particular about lot placement or where things are, I'll even ask them, hey, why don't you take a drive by and make sure that, there's not something next door that you don't like or that the power lines aren't above, or do some Google research. If you end up with someone who's running you all over God's creation and they're picking out the one thing, that they can actually look at on their own, which would be something outside, then, you can do that tactfully, and people will respect your time if you set boundaries around it. Because you are a business owner, and I think it's really important in your consultations with your sellers and your buyers to talk to them about your schedule and to tell them, after 6 p.m., unless we're negotiating an offer, I'm going to be with my family, so. Or whatever it is, or I don't work on Friday, or, just make sure you're very upfront about your availability. And the other thing that I tell buyers, especially in the climate today, is, I'm going to make myself available to you if a new listing comes up that I think is that we need to go look at, because I understand the climate, but I also need you to make yourself available. So in other words, maybe you need to take a morning off or an afternoon off, or leave work early, or go in late, or meet me at lunchtime, instead of it always being 7 o'clock at night, because if a hot property comes on the market at 1 o'clock in the morning, by 7 p.m. the next day, it could be gone. And, so I think it's all about setting expectations and setting boundaries so that people can respect that. And then you can protect those areas of your life, like Beth said, that are of most importance to you.
Awesome. Anybody in the room have any questions? Do we have anything that we want to ask? I can ask on behalf of you. You're good.
Anybody else on the call that had a question, or if you even want to, if you're on a webinar, you want to chat, but I think we're good if we have some questions. Beth did there. Man, I wrote like 3, did you guys write a lot of notes? I wrote like a lot of notes. So I think it's good to see that there's kind of a path and there's kind of a destination to kind of make sure you're using your database in an effective way. And I think you did a great job of kind of illustrating that. I think we talk about a lot at Keller Williams. I don't think other brokerages do. And you can see both of you guys are very successful, and it's because you've adopted that foundation of database quick. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and you can tell there is so much that Michelle and I are doing that's basically the same thing. So there is a formula for success. And, we're all pretty much doing the same thing. We might use a different tool. We might have a different script, but the tasks, the activities are very much the same.
Yeah, the skeleton of your businesses are like, or the foundation are the same. The guts or the insides are customized to you. It's your personality, it's your people you hang out with. But I think you definitely see the core or the skeleton of your businesses have that, again, database being one of those. So awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I know you guys are busy uh, entrepreneurs making money and setting appointments. I appreciate your time. Thank you guys very
Thanks,
much.
Drew.
All right,
Thank
have a great
you
day,
for the
guys.
invitation.
Bye.